morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, October 26, 2016. I am Dave Biddle. I am very happy to be joined by our new staff member at Bucknuts, Patrick Murphy. Patrick, welcome to Bucknuts. Welcome to the show. And, please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself as far as where you went to college, your history as a sports writer, just anything else you want to say.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I went to Ohio State. I went to Denison, which is out in Granville, Ohio, about 45 minutes away my freshman year. Transferred back to Ohio State. Pretty much grew up in Columbus. Moved here when I was 9, so I've been around the program and the city and everything for quite a while. Graduated from Ohio State, worked with the Lantern while I was there, and then afterwards kind of got going at theozone.net. Actually, Brandon Castell, who I know you guys are familiar with, was the one who kind of first brought me on there. So I'm familiar with him, and he's familiar with me, and that kind of first got me in the door, doing Ohio State coverage and professionally doing the sports writing. It was kind of interning there and whatnot. Eventually a position opened up. So I've been hanging out there for the last few years, and I'm excited to kind of take the next step and move on here and take this new role that you guys kind of have created and continue Ohio State coverage at a pretty cool time to be covering the team.
Yeah, no question about it. We're thrilled to have you. You've been on the beat now for at least 3 years. I've gotten to know you, and you also have some background covering the Columbus Crew SC. I know you write for SB Nation. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the Crew site's called Massive Report. It's very similar from what I've seen to what we do here at Bucknuts. Obviously a smaller community, soccer community, and MLS, the Major League Soccer. But I grew up playing soccer, so that was kind of my sport in terms of playing it, and always a football fan. But that was the one I really knew well. My dad also played football, but and so that was kind of the obvious way to kind of get into things on a tactical side. As I first started writing, that was something I did about the same time as I started with the Ozone, just kind of looking to get my feet out there, get my name out there, whatever I could do to start building a resume and, have some sample articles to send to people and things like that. So, it's been a very cool experience. The last few years, the team has gotten a lot better than when I first started. Not a great season this past season. The team didn't make the playoffs, but it's a fun team to coverage. The smaller beats, allow you a little bit more access and kind of the ability to do your own thing as opposed to something like Ohio State where, we kind of get what we can get, and you have to dig a little bit more to get information and things like that. So it's a different experience, but a cool one, and kind of brings its own challenges and whatnot, which I think's been good just for me as an individual and moving forward in my career.
Okay, back to the other football. The football our listeners really want to hear about, the Ohio State Buckeyes. There were questions, obviously, entering the season about this team because they were so young and inexperienced. I mean, they were actually the least experienced team in all of FBS in terms of returning starters. And then, they start off the season like gangbusters. They rise to number 2 in the polls. We're like, look at this team. They look like a juggernaut. Then they have the very close game at Wisconsin that could have gone either way. Then they lose to Penn State. So my question for you, sir, what is your vibe on this team right now? Do you think they'll still end up as Big Ten champs? Just how do you foresee things going from here for this team?
Yeah, that's the major question, isn't it? I think like everyone, you see them win at Wisconsin, and I kind of not necessarily got caught up in the hype, but you're like, okay, these guys you see them win at Oklahoma initially, and you are kind of like, wow, this team's legit. Even if Oklahoma isn't having its best year, it's still Oklahoma. They've gone on to win some games after that, so. Going out there, first road test, that certainly sets the bar pretty high. The Wisconsin game certainly showed some flaws, but I think anytime you can get an emotional win like that, you think, okay, this team will kind of move on from that. And I know everyone compared it to the Penn State game in 2014, and I don't know if the similarities were necessarily there as much as we wanted to think, but, it was certainly a springboard potentially, and then you see this team go out and do what they did last week and just kind of lay an egg. And it's disappointing, but I think we learned over the last 2 weeks that while there is certainly talent on this team, it it isn't necessarily 2014. You know, the way 2014 worked out was special. That group really came together around a lot of different things. And you know, the situation is not going to be the same, whether it, you know, kind of looks like it at the beginning of the year or not. So, you know, while this team still has a chance to do something special like the 2014 team did, you know, I don't know if it's necessarily a direct comparison anymore, though they do have this loss that can, you know, still early enough in the season where they can make some corrections and turn things around.
I'm curious if they're going to make any personnel changes. I had a chance to ask Urban Meyer about that on Monday. Bill Rabinowitz asked him about it on the Big Ten teleconference yesterday. And as you know from covering Coach Meyer, he's not going to come out and say, yeah, guys, here's exactly the personnel changes I'm going to make.
Right.
But we can kind of read between the lines here. When he said, he could just flat out say, no, I'm not making any personnel changes. You know, Monday he talked around it a little more, although he could have just been straightforward. He, you know, when I asked him, he said, well, we haven't decided that yet. That's something that we would talk about later today if we would do that. So then Bill, you know, asked him yesterday, okay, now that you said you were going to talk about it, you know, now that day has passed, are you going to make any personnel change? And he says, Meyer's quote was, not yet, but we are still having those conversations. So reading between the lines, they're at least considering it. Do you expect any personnel changes this Saturday?
I think this Saturday is a little too early, especially given, you know, it's a Northwestern team that's certainly on the rise, but a team you would imagine this Buckeye team, even if they played like they did at Penn State, playing at home, should be able to beat. It's an angry team right now, which is what Urban always wants. So I think, you know, I don't think it's necessary this week. Now, if you go out there and you see some of these same issues and no response from certain players, then I think you make changes. You know, and they may make changes anyway. I think with the offensive line issues, there's not a lot of depth there. You know, with injuries and just, you know, guys that are pretty young that are already in there, you know, where do you turn? At wide receiver, you've got some guys, but the coaching staff keeps saying guys like Austin Mack and Benjamin Victor aren't there yet. They're close, but they're not there yet. So maybe you see a little bit more of those guys, but I don't think you know, necessarily see them in a starting role, you know, come this week. If they weren't ready last week, what did this week do? And, you know, defensively, I don't think they really need anything. Maybe you see some switches on special teams, but I don't think that's what you were asking about when you were asking about it. So, you know, I think there's definitely the possibility of it because I don't think he would have owned up to that had there not been some conversations. But to see things change this early in the, you know, or this early after the loss, you know, let these guys at least respond would be kind of my thing. And if you don't see that response from them, then maybe it's time to look somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's very well said. You know, I could envision something where, let's look at right tackle, for example. I could see, you know, Isaiah Prince. I still think he's going to start this week, but I could envision Brandon Bowen, you know, rotating in, you know, a little bit. You know, right now Brandon Bowen's only played if there's been an injury. You know, if Jamarco's gone down, Jamarco Jones, they've moved Isaiah Prince over to left tackle. We've seen Bowen going at right tackle. We've heard the coaches talk up Bowen as the best backup offensive lineman. So I could see something like that, more of a rotation, but I agree with you. I don't think they're going to flat out bench any starters this week. Before I let you go, the Buckeyes are favored by 25 points this week over visiting Northwestern, who's the most improved team in the Big Ten, it looks like, from the beginning of the year till now. How do you see this one playing out? Do you think the Buckeyes will win and cover, or just how do you see this one playing out?
Well, first let me say I'm terrible at any sort of odds, so you know, don't take this advice as something you should go straight to Vegas with. But I think you see Ohio State respond. You know, that's a big spread, even at home. You know, this is a Northwestern team, like I said, that may not be, you know, the best team in the Big Ten, but as you put it, they're drastically improved from where they were at the beginning of the season. So I don't know if they necessarily cover those points. Though I think they will certainly try to go out and put, you know, everybody to the woodshed. But yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I think you'll gain some confidence back in this team. You know, I think the biggest thing for me is this passing game, and if, you know, they can establish something. This team focuses so much on the run and practice and this read option and whatnot. You know, maybe this week opened up some eyes in the coaching staff that, hey, maybe we should work some new things to kind of get these guys open and figure out what's going on here. Because that's been a problem for 3 weeks, whereas the offensive line has been a major issue last week. You know, I know there were some issues before, but I just see it as the receivers being a major issue. So that's what I'll be looking for. And, you know, I think they win pretty comfortably, but I don't know if they cover the spread.
I'll wimp out and give my prediction on Friday's show like I usually do. But great having you on the show, my man. Really appreciate your insights. He is Patrick Murphy. Patrick, again, welcome to Bucknuts, and thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
And quick programming note out there, we have interviews tonight after practice, probably around 6:30. We will interview Urban Meyer, and then after that we will interview Ed Warner, Garyon Conley, Pat Elflein, and Joe Berger. Pat will be there covering it, Steve will be there covering it, and I'll be there covering it as well. So keep it locked to Bucknuts tonight for coverage of all of that. Thanks again to Patrick Murphy, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.